Hello, hi. Thank you for being here. My name is Kaitlyn Michelle, and we're here to talk about life and esoterics. I have a bit of a spiritual overtone, undertone, every tone about life and approaching even the most mundane things. So this is my very first episode, which is pretty scary for me because it means I have to put myself out there. And I haven't put myself out there in a couple years now. And especially on social media, pretty much anyone who used to follow me on Instagram, Facebook, they don't know much about my life anymore. And part of me doesn't really want to change that. However, I am being pushed to change that. I have hit my pain point. And this is the middle of a big, major life transition for me. And it's a transition that we all go through, or hopefully we all get to go through this because it happens around our 29th year. In numerology, this is the change from the development cycle to the productive cycle. And in astrology, it's termed the first Saturn return. And for those who may not be super familiar with astrology, the first Saturn return quite literally means that Saturn is back in the same part of the sky that it was when you were born. And yes, that happens every 29 years, just about. So I realized at the beginning of this year that I have a choice. I could resist the changes and let everything just fall apart and let the pieces fall wherever they may and have absolutely no control and just kind of muck around in a mess. Or I could be flexible and proactive and let myself become uncomfortable so that I can keep growing and keep developing. And as a 3-life path in numerology, the whole concept of self-growth and development is so integral to the way that I approach life. So, of course, I chose the latter option. At the beginning of the year, I took stock of my life and I realized I was exhausted. I was a new mom. I guess I still am. And on top of that, I was really busy in business. Lots of different projects going on with my husband. We do business together. But I was feeling so totally unfulfilled for it. And then there have also been other very intense stresses that I hope to cover in some future programs, especially some of them I hope to cover if I can get my husband on here, because some things are pains that we both share that maybe it's not my place to just say it on here without him also being part of it and giving his permission. So anyway, I decided pretty early on when I realized that I was approaching this transition that I need to figure out how to get right with many different aspects, especially with creativity and communication, because those are core aspects of my being and core aspects that I have completely ignored for years. And the last several years have been quite intense for many reasons that, again, I hope to cover soon. But another thing that I also realized was that I needed to learn how to ask for help. And I am still working on that one. However, I started with asking my husband if I could get at least a half hour to an hour of alone time every single day. which I did not have for the first 6-7 months of my son's life. And it got really hard, and being the one doing all the diaper changes and the feeding at night, and then also being the primary person during the day. I had no time, not even time to shower. And I know that I'm not alone here. This is pretty common for a lot of new moms, but I needed some time because I am an introvert. Or I don't know if that's just a story that I've told myself, but I do know that I need time just by myself to recharge. So I started calling this creativity time. I wasn't always creative during this time, but I still called it creativity time because that is my intent. So I read some books. I started with reading some books on creativity because I was just at such a loss for how to reawaken this flame inside. And quite honestly, I worried that I completely extinguished it long ago. And I have a very specific memory of when I did this. And it was, side note, it was in college when I decided I was going to throw myself into the study of economics and international studies, which I don't necessarily regret, but it wasn't fulfilling. We'll go with that for now. And anyway, I've kind of limped along for the past, 10 years, having a core aspect of myself just turned off, gone, and inaccessible. And another thing that I also realized was I really love to be in communion with people. What a weird way of saying I just like talking with friends. So I reached out and I started to create a rhythm around this, especially with one of my friends. We started a bi-weekly tea date because that was something that I could get more time. And that was the only time I had away from the house and just completely child-free and husband-free. And so that has started the momentum for these changes that have been happening and developing throughout this year. So just to sum up some of the other aspects of how I have been really going about handling this transition in life, because even though at least numerology is great as a system in terms of me knowing exactly the theme of the cycle that I am moving into, but even knowing that, that's very much in my brain. That's not in my body or my heart. And so it's hard to really practically know how to handle where I am going. And so to help me with that, I have been doing things like life coaching with my beautiful goddess friend, Jill Farmar. There's a shout out to her. And I've also been getting very serious about meditation, which isn't a new thing for me, but becoming serious about it is new, and trying new ways of meditating that kind of let me explore the multidimensionality of our universe. I've also developed a daily grounding practice, and I say daily, but I do it multiple times a day at this point, just to really make sure that I am grounded in the energy of the earth and am not carrying around a lot of high stress issues and thoughts and emotions, that I can just dump those off and let those be transmuted without having to let that explode out on anybody, like my family. And then I've also started to dip my toe into past life regression, which I just had my first experience with that last week. I found a recording online actually while I was looking for somebody here in Las Vegas to go and see. And so I did that recording, and it was pretty cool. It was very interesting, and maybe I'm going to cover that really soon in another episode. And at that point, I also hope that I can open up the phone lines so that anyone of you who also has anything that you would like to share with remembering past lives, or even deja vu moments, and maybe going forward too, like there's such thing that I have learned as being able to access your future lives, which I haven't been able to do, but I've learned about that as a possibility, which is pretty cool. And here I am going off on a tangent. So let's get back to business. The other things that I've been doing to navigate this year of big transitions. I would say another really big aspect of what I've been doing is learning how to transmute energy that I have around people and situations, past and current, especially the ones that have cut me to my core. And I have a few of those. So most recently, I had a psychic Reiki session, which came about really synchronistically, or at least how I met the couple who performed it. It was very synchronistic, and it's one of those things that makes my heart leap with joy, because it's like, oh my gosh, wow, the universe really is like making things happen in such the perfect manner. Because what happened, I'm just going to tell you a little story here. And so what happened is I was 7 months postpartum, I think, at this point. And I had a freezer full of breast milk because my son would not drink out of a bottle, ever. And so I didn't know what to do with all of this milk that was going to expire in a month or two. And so I reached out to my friend who's a chiropractor, because I figured she would come across more people than really anyone else that I know who might be in need of milk. And so I reached out to her, and apparently less than an hour before I reached out to her, this couple reached out to her asking if she knew anyone who's vegan and had breast milk for their, how old was he at that point? I think he was 3 weeks, maybe a month. But for their really itty bitty baby. And it was just the perfect timing. And then we met, of course, to pass along the milk. And I found out that they do energy work, which to me, that's synchronistic, because I literally had this thought that I put out into the universe only a couple of weeks beforehand of how I wanted to find more people who were into the esoterics, I guess, but energy work as well. Because even though this has been such a core aspect of who I am, I've always been very undercover about it. And so I don't talk about it, and I don't know that I have many people in my life who would even be open to exploring all of these topics. And so when I learned that about them, it just made me so giddy. It was the coolest thing. And even to this day, I'm thinking about it. I'm like, this is the coolest way for things to happen. Anyway, so at that point, I didn't know that that the mom, the wife, that she was psychic.